So before I get started, I got to tell you guys a story. I was in college, my first mainframe coding class on a mainframe, right? And me and my buddy Niloy Shaw decided we could figure out a system to beat Vegas. And we had no idea, we were young kids, we had no idea that there was only a certain amount of hours on the mainframe that were allocated to our class. So 4 weeks in, we had green bar, we built the table out of green bar printouts, and it was amazing. But anyway, we came up with this amazing system, but we ran out of mainframe time. The teacher was at the front of the room going, I don't know what happened. We're completely out of time on the mainframe. So it's kind of funny for me to be in Vegas right now. But by the way, we came to Vegas, we tested our system, we did not win. Go figure. But anyway, so Vegas is interesting. All right. So 99 out of the 100 largest companies in the world are SAP customers, but here's an interactive moment for you guys. What percentage of those 99 do you believe already use BTP?
70.
Got to be loud. Can't hear you.
70.
Who said 70? 70. Guess what you win? 2 tickets to the Vegas Golden Knights versus Tampa Bay Lightning tomorrow night in Vegas.
This is why I told you to sit up front.
We absolutely want you guys to participate. So we're giving away good stuff. By the way, Angelique in the back. Go see Angelique, but she's the ticket master. Yeah, so absolutely 70% of the largest companies on earth already use BTP. So when Jim says that the train already left the station, it really has. People are starting to use it. It took us a while. Everybody in the room is an SAP customer. You know that we kind of renamed it a few times, but it's amazing. The momentum around BTP right now is incredible. We have 12,000 people working on BTP every single day of their lives. So it's not like a small commitment on SAP's part. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about demystifying BTP because it has a lot of different aspects to it. It's really easy to kind of miss the big picture because you're working on a small problem. And you wind up not using BTP for its main intention, which is to help you innovate fast, to reduce risk, to reduce technical debt, and to basically take advantage of AI as well. Have to put this up. If you haven't seen this before, I'm going to make some future statements, but until it becomes generally available, it may change. SAP always kind of keeps that out there. So some of the things may not happen if it's not generally available today. So quick poll. Do you guys think predicting the future is easy and simple, or do you think it's hard and complicated? What do you think?
Hard and complicated.
Hard. Everybody says hard. All right. So please pull out your phones. You want to pull out your phones anyway. Go to this web address, SAK, as in Sakalas, sak7.com. And when you get there, you should see a little screen that looks something like, my battery stops working. Really? Say it isn't so. Anyway, the screen should look like that. Everybody have the screen? All right, so if you touch it, it turns red. If you touch it, it turns green. And you guys will be able to participate at the exchange, and we'll all be able to kind of predict the future together. And so let me throw you a softball question first. Do you agree that if you can predict the future, it becomes really easy to make better decisions, to work on the right projects? Everybody hold it up. Everybody agree? Lots of green. Absolutely. So that was the easy one. It gets a little harder from here. So let's pretend every one of us is in the market for a ranch. We've decided we want to get out of the rat race. We want to go out to the country. So you come across this property. It's for sale. Got a bridge, got a creek, got rolling hills. If you were interested in buying a ranch, would you consider at least looking at this property? What do you think? Yes. But now, what if you understand the big picture and you actually see the sign that's actually there? Suddenly you know that it may not have trouble today, it may not have trouble tomorrow, but would you look at this property now or would you look elsewhere? A lot of red. Okay, so you understand how the crystal ball works. Okay? Here's the question that we're going to answer, and this is a very important question for all of us, because if we make the right decisions today, we're going to work on the right projects to be ready for 2030. What will enterprise systems look like just 6 years from today? And so, my PowerPoint is not cooperating, and I don't know why. Statement number one, come on. Try left-handed. We're changing out devices. It made a noise, that's a good thing. I'm really techie. Sounds good. Let's reboot it. All right. Agree or disagree? Green is agree, red is disagree. Business cycles and processes will be much faster than they are today. Everybody agrees. Number two, enterprise applications will be more diverse 6 years from now than today. Everybody agree? One red, two reds, but mostly green. Okay. Large corporations will be 100% in the cloud by 2030. Do you agree? It's about 50-50, probably 60-40 toward the red. But if I change this to 75%, what do you guys think? Everybody goes green, for sure. Right? Mostly in the cloud, perhaps not completely in the cloud. Your customers, will they expect everything in real time? Absolutely. Right now, Amazon delivers to my front door. I get the text faster than my doorbell rings. It's shocking, right? What about your decision makers? Well, they want all their numbers in real time too. And we're not there yet, right? Do we have real-time numbers to all our decision makers today? No. Long way to go. So, what about artificial intelligence? Will it absolutely fix it all? Will it integrate everything together? Will it make everything real time? No. Nobody believes that in a million years. AI is not going to pull all that off. But what if I kind of dumb that down a little bit and say we'll be a lot more automated? Everybody agrees we're going to be more automated. Is COVID-19 the last black swan or something around the corner? Why is everybody laughing? Come on. COVID-25, let's hope not, right? Okay, so congratulations. I think all of us voted the same, and it's amazing because I've done this with many, many audiences. It's always the same. We can predict our middle term, 7-year out future. Alejandro, you agree? Yeah, Alejandro's even on board. That's nice. It's going to look like this. It's going to be a network. Everything's going to be moving faster. There's going to be very diverse landscapes, real-time customers, real-time insights for our decision makers, multiple clouds, not one. Going to have to make it all work together. There's still going to be some stuff on-premise, so there's the hybrid part. Greater automation, no doubt about it. The IT mission actually gets more complicated because the business and tech are going to be completely inseparable. I was literally in Houston last quarter. Time flies. We had an airplane. We had pilots. We had flight attendants. We had lots of passengers. I was one of them. Somebody pressed delete in Dallas-Fort Worth, and there's no undo button for deleting a flight. They could not board us. We stayed overnight in Houston because somebody pressed delete. So yes, the business and tech are getting inseparable. So it's kind of an ugly world. So anyway, there's no doubt in my mind that the future looks a lot like this, and you guys, I believe, have agreed. So predicting our future in the enterprise system space is actually easier than we thought. Everybody agree with the green phone? One more time? Yes, I got a lot of nods. Everybody put their phone away. Thank you. You guys are awesome. So here's the problem. And Mark Cuban is about as famous as anybody talking about this. Change is constant. You think you're winning, and then you're not. Your competition is changing nonstop. The environment you compete in is changing nonstop. We absolutely have to deal with change, and we don't know what that change looks like. But at our own companies, things like this are happening. If you're wondering what this is, it's short-termism. I've got a problem, I've got a deadline, I've got to get it done, and I work on it really, really Andres, do you agree that's a shutterfly issue? Right? Everybody wants to get something done by next month. And so what do? You cut corners. You start using bungee cord and duct tape, and you glue that next little solution on there, right? Turns into a little bit of a mess. I think all of us have a chart that looks something like this. There's a reason for that. The trucking department wants a new application. They go out to the open market, they find their best of breed, very specific trucking application. They throw it over the wall to IT and they say, hey, IT, can you make this work with the rest of the stuff? And IT says, yeah, that's my job. And you keep integrating, you keep trying to make it all work until you've got lots and lots of applications all kind of loosely coupled together in not a really pretty way. And so All right, let's make this a poll. How many on-premises apps do you guys think the average Fortune 500 company runs today? You got to go louder than that.
300.
Higher. What'd you say? Nope.
700. 800.
What?
600. Right here. 600. Bob. 700.
700.
Did anybody say 500? Let's go with honesty here. The answer, by the way, is 484. This is our next tickets. 484 on-premises apps. The SaaS side is growing like a weed right now. We're over 200, and that is growing incredibly quickly. If you do a merger and acquisition, I can promise you you're doubling up your apps because it's not going to be very compatible. So now you got to get those two charts to work together. And it gets you 2 tickets to go see Cirque du Soleil. There you go. So Angelique's in the corner. Good win. It pays to yell the right answer. So next time, y'all be really loud, okay? So this statement has stood the test of time since the 1800s. It's not the oldest, most established companies. Okay, I changed it a little bit, but it's not the oldest, most established companies that survive. It's the ones that are most adaptable to change. And this is really a spoiler alert for all of BTP. BTP was created to help you adapt to change. That's why it exists. It's not for the little small things that you work with it on. That's the main purpose that it exists. If a company can become more modular, integrated, real-time, data-driven, and have a clean core, which Sam, you're in here somewhere, right? There's Sam. Sam from Langen is going to be talking about clean core. Right, Sam?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Yep.
Do I get tickets?
No. Anyway. That's how you become ready for the future. And us working on let's face facts. Good things to do get in the way of great things to do. Every one of us has too many projects staring us in the face for this year and too many projects for next year. But if you pick the ones that are actually going to help you get ready for the future, it matters. It matters a lot. It matters in 2030. And so I have the luxury of flying around the country, or the pleasure, whichever way you want to look at it, and talking to lots and lots of customers. And I've started putting together a list of what are the main problems that most customers are talking about. And this is like the top 10, right? Are these in your top 10 goals too? Things like optimizing pricing and reducing costs and making better decisions with data and all that kind of stuff? Because that's what I get from everybody. And so, it's easy to say, well, why don't we just try to solve any one of these things? But you need a platform because there's lots of platform components that go into each one of these. These are not easy to do. Your data's got to be clean. Your data's got to work all well together. You got to be able to deliver to the right person at the right time to get to the right decision, right? And so you've got to leverage a platform if you want to succeed. So if you look across the bottom, I kind of picked the items that BTP does well and this goal of helping you become more modular and simplified. But then if you start looking at each one of these problems, you're going to discover that there's lots and lots of platform components that are necessary to solve each one of these problems. And what do we really do too often? We work on one of these at a time in a little stovepipe department. We're like, okay, we're going to work on improving employee productivity in this department. And we pick all these different tools that we've never used before usually. We connect it all together and we're like, oh, it's not any easier for us now to work on optimizing pricing. So a whole bunch of other tools. So you've got to take advantage of a platform that's going to help you with all these business problems. And these are the ones that are going to either going to succeed or fail on. There's no doubt in my mind. The problem at the end of the day comes down to this: exploding complexity. The more complex it gets, the harder it is on IT to survive this world that's constantly changing too fast. Complexity is what's slowing down development. Complexity is what's creating the silos that we can't seem to defeat. And complexity is absolutely stopping data-driven intelligence. If you overcome complexity, you're going to wind up accelerating everything. That's why we created BTP in the first place. No company is a better example of leveraging a platform and making it work across all its different components than Apple. If you think about it, if I play High Hopes on my watch, it shows up on my phone, it shows up on my desktop, suddenly this experience seems to work really well together, even though all these different areas grew up differently, right? It's really easy to forget that 22 years ago, just 22 years ago, not that long ago, Dan and I were just talking about our daughters that are 22, so yeah. But bottom line is, 22 years ago, it was a titanic battle between Sony and Apple for the music business. A few years later, and I don't know if any of you guys went to this Sapphire, Howard Stringer stood on stage at Sapphire and talked about this and said, it's mind-boggling. We had the best of breed device. We had all the connections to the industry. We had everything. The wind, they had the Walkman back then. That was the best of breed device. Only 22 years ago. And they lost to a competitor that had none of it at that time. And you might say, well, Apple's big. No, Apple wasn't big then. Apple was a $10 billion market cap back then. Sony was a $40 billion market cap, 4 times larger. They lost anyway. They didn't take a platform approach. Since then, by the way, it's really hard to see this, but the yellow line is Sony, just to be clear. That's not a flat line. Apple killed it. If I had put my 401k, no, yeah, it's kind of a messy thing. So I think a question that all of us have to ask ourselves are most vendors that are calling on you on a daily basis, are they helping you simplify your world? No. Who wants those tickets? No. No, this is just data and AI, Dan's world, as we like to refer to it, right? It's an amazing amount of vendors. This is actually just page 1. You can actually go Google it and find out that there's another page behind that one that nobody even gets to see. And even if I narrow that down to the top 25 in those different areas, it's still a very difficult thing. And if you remember, we answered the question, is it going to be more complex in the future? Yeah, look what's happened in this marketplace in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, 139 vendors on this basic chart. We're up to 1,400 at this point. So it just keeps on growing. And so, BTP in one page, less than 50 words, it's hard to do. It's a bespoke set of tools if you've got SAP in your landscape. It helps you with both SAP and your non-SAP stuff and makes it all work well together. It's roughly, inside BTP, there's roughly 100 tech services. You can see them all if you go to our Discovery Center. It's sap.com/disco. But the key difference between what we do and what everybody else does is that we're trying to ship content to help you with the integrations, to help you with the development and all that kind of stuff. So we've got, in just the last year, we've gone from 2,500, I'm going to use the word artifacts, I don't know if that's the right word, but 2,500 pieces of integration to 3,500 in just 1 year. So it continues to grow incredibly quickly. It also comes with blueprints. So if you want to know how to hook together this next delivery app that looks like Amazon when they deliver at your door, you can use the pre-built blueprints, so you're not starting from scratch. You take a lot of the risk out of the program. It helps you be nimble, innovate quickly, reduce risk, and ultimately simplify the complexity so that you can keep that core clean and go quickly into the future. It's really hard to innovate if you're spending 80% of your budget just keeping the lights on. I've been in this industry since the 90s. We've been saying this phrase since the 90s, and it hasn't changed. Everybody agree that you're still spending a lot of money keeping the lights on? Yeah, absolutely. If you do mergers, it gets worse, even if that merger has SAP stuff in it, because the SAP worlds don't necessarily align either, because they may have customized their stuff completely different than you customized your stuff. Our mission, though, has never changed, even though the technology underneath does. We've always believed that the whole's got to be greater than the sum of the parts. Modularity is the key to that. This idea of a monolithic app that runs everything is just a thing of the past. And so it's got an absolutely key role in trying to get you past this thing, right? So this is point A. We all have this point A. And when I look at that point A, to me, it looks like the insides of a Swiss watch. All the gears intermesh really closely, all the little levers. And as a result, what happens when you want to do an upgrade? Everybody freaks out. It's like, oh my God, there's a lot of risk. I got to retest everything. Absolutely everything, because my job's on the line, because I'm doing an upgrade, because I'm not modular enough. And so let me ask somebody who's got an Apple Watch. By the way, this is not for a ticket. So but let me ask you a question. Have you ever worried if you download a new fitness app to your smartwatch that suddenly core timekeeping is going to stop working? No. Why? Because it's all modular. The insides of the watch are protected from all the different advances wherever they come from in the world, right? This is the exact same playbook that we need for our entire enterprise. How do we abstract those core systems and innovate at the edge? And that's exactly what BTP does, and that's how you become more adaptable. And so the world's simplest version of BTP is the stuff in yellow is what we do. It exists to help you become modular and help you go fast. And the way you go fast is through that pre-built content. And so let's talk about S4 for a second. Now, does anybody in the room use all the features within Microsoft Excel? No, right? Same thing with S4. We did not write S4 for Home Depot or for Coca-Cola or for Lockheed. We wrote S4, so it runs a broad number of different companies. And there's lots and lots of features that you'll wind up never using, right? But the reason you go with software as a service is it's less expensive, you can stay on budget, it's well tested across thousands of companies, you're not going off the deep end. You got lower keep the lights on costs, you know what that's going to be, you know what the pace of innovation is going to be. So you're going to wind up using part of it, just like we only use part of Excel, right? But ultimately, there's a plan. We know that you're going to be integrating to your unique environment. We know you're going to have some unique capabilities. You know you're going to have some differentiating capabilities that you want for just your business and no one else. And that's literally, if you 80% fit with S4, BTP exists for that other 20%. They were always intended to go together like chocolate and peanut butter, and a Reese's peanut butter cup. That was the original intent of having S4 with BTP. The really cool part is that BTP also has the stuff for the future. So Chris, you may not be ready for the next AI chatbot yet. You want to roll that out in 2026, right? That's what you told me. I'm making it up. The whole point is that other companies will be working on it this year. So when you're ready, that stuff in BTP is also going to be ready. And so we're writing everything on top of BTP. When in this new Sunrise slide, which I think many people have seen, there's a reason that BTP and Core ERP are in blue. They're considered our core systems. Everything's written on top of them. So we're writing, whether it's ERP or our HXM stuff or our procurement stuff or our CX stuff, it's all being written on top of BTP in a modular fashion so that we can optimize your processes and include AI in those processes. It all runs on top of your favorite infrastructure. So it's got a very important purpose there. It helps you go into the future at the same time that SAP is going into the future, so all these things continue to work together. We suggest, we actually recommend, put BTP on top of your favorite infrastructure cloud because we do different things. You get the best of both worlds. We're all focused on the business end, right? How do you make better decisions? How do you defeat those departmental silos? How do you apply AI to your business process? The infrastructure guys, like Google, where you used to work, right? You guys were, you're not there anymore, focused on how do you optimize the compute? How do you manage those containers? How do you scale the storage? How do you build more data centers? All these things matter a lot, and they're incredibly important problems, but we're working on different aspects. But people still ask me this question. What's the key difference between what we do and what the infrastructure does? And it comes down to business productivity. The best way I can describe this is through an analogy. So who am I going to pick on? Chris. You looked up at the right time. I'm going to pick on Chris. So, by the way, Chris is from Heartland. He's going to talk later, so that's why I know him. So imagine your boss. Who's your boss, Nathan? Yeah. So Nathan walks in the room. He went barbecuing with his family over the weekend. He had this big idea. It's like, Chris, we got this incredibly important customer that's coming in next week. And I want you to build this amazing Lego city that covers this entire table so we can show them our attention to detail. So my question to you is pretty simple. Would you go run down to the store and buy Lego city kits that are built to build skyscrapers and firehouses and everything else? Or would you go buy this big bag of Lego blocks and promise Nathan you'd get it done by Monday?
I might enjoy the latter, but I'd go buy the kits.
Yeah, and this is what SAP's selling. SAP's selling pre-built kits that are 85, 90% done, ready to be hooked up for whatever your business problem is. And sure, you can code anything you want on AWS, have no doubt. But you're going to start with a lower level. You're going to start with Lego blocks without a blueprint, and you're going to wing it, and Nathan's going to fire you because it's going to look not so good. So anyway, I'm kidding. Anyway, so our city kits are the things in blue. I've renamed them to be very easy to understand what they really do. The stuff in yellow is how you hook it all up together. It runs on your favorite infrastructure. It's got all the integration that you need for all the SAP components, plus it's got open connectors for all the other usual suspects in the enterprise. So let's say you want to build a portal. You start with our portal technology, also known as WorkZone, which is going to be part of the Heartland presentation, right? You then use our connectivity components to connect it to the back office stuff. You want to use our single sign-on to make sure you have good security so you don't get hacked. You include workflow because the portal might result in additional work in other applications. You deliver analytics to the people that are visiting the portal, and you might deliver it in 5 different languages because you're worldwide, right? You assemble it all with Business Application Studio. The one word to remember, the one word that I've been talking about is that we deliver content with the capability. You start with the content. It starts with these blue city kits, but there's more. There's over 3,500 integration APIs and connectors that are all worked out, including, it's not enough to have dial tone. If I have dial tone with Dan, but he speaks Chinese and I speak English, we've got dial tone, but you still got to write all the different mappings to get from point A to point B. We give you those mappings and maintain them for you, so it's no longer a technical debt for you. Intelligent bots to make sure you get automated. Analytics Cloud doesn't come blank either. It's got stuff for your industry. And lastly, it's the use case blueprints, which I've been beating over the head right now, I guess. Ultimately, that's how you become a lot more productive. This is what it looks like on the web. Build content, integration content, analytics content, automation content. We're actually moving it all to one spot called the Business Acceleration Hub. Is that what it's called? Yeah. So if you go to api.sap.com, we're all trying to consolidate all this stuff there. And ultimately, all these microservices are at the Discovery Center, which I mentioned before, sap.com/disco. Great website. You can see the pricing, you can do configuration, you can do all that kind of stuff. Kind of an interesting article. I just threw this in there because it's so important. But last week in the Wall Street Journal, I don't know if you guys saw this article, but it talked about the cost of technical debt. And they're measuring it at like 1.5 trillion with a T, just a really big number. But it's costing American business a shocking amount. The amount of retesting that we do, the amount of effort that we put into this keeping the lights on thing is amazing. And so BTP, it basically is, remember on the on-premise side, we have roughly 484 apps. SaaS is growing fast. We're trying to hide the complexity and make it simple, so BTP simplifies those things so you can go modular with pre-built content and basically give a cohesive view to your business users, to your customers, and everybody else while you get an optimized business process. Now, what's the future look like? Well, the right side of that chart changes. Now you've insulated this side, your end users, right? The future is going to look like that. A lot more SaaS, a lot less on-premise, right? And so the benefits of BTP come down to this. You adapt while you reduce complexity. You automate. I mean, Hasso was on stage in 2017 talking about the automated ERP. No doubt about it, right? You integrate everything together to make sure you maximize the value of stuff. You improve your data, so you now finally become more data-driven, and ultimately you optimize the business processes. But the ultimate thing that I don't want you guys to forget, it's all about doing the right projects to be ready for the future. And so here's the real issue. You forget this big point, the big point about getting ready for the future, and you start working on the short-termism problem, right? I got a problem right now. So you lose sight of the forest for all the trees. And believe me, there are a lot of trees in the way. Every one of these topics can be multi-day workshops, POCs, all this kind of stuff. And you think, okay, well, even if we get through that, it's not just one destination. We have a lot of different destinations we're trying to get to, too. So the complexity of it feels like, oh, I forget that I'm trying to get ready for the future because I'm worried about what I'm working on from a short-term problem. But BTP is really much more strategic than that. It's all about fast time to value, reduce the risk, and ultimately getting ready for the future is the number one reason for you to use BTP. And so here's the coolness that's happened. Gen AI comes along and it fills the wind in our sails. How many years did we go where IT like, do more with less? I mean, that's golly. How many times have we heard that? And all of a sudden now, the world has suddenly woken up to the fact that, gee, IT can make us more productive. It can make us more effective. And people are looking at investing at that, right? Here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, though. If you haven't cleaned up the data, bad data equals bad AI in a hurry. So if you're going to want to get to a great, beautiful AI future, you better get to a nice data future. So how do you accelerate with BTP? Really, two legs to this stool. It falls over, I know, but I shouldn't use stool there. You got to become more data-driven. You have to have your data right, so that way you can do your business AI right. So let me talk about data-driven for a second. And by the way, at this show, absolutely go talk to Glenn Leslie and a lot of those guys about DataSphere. It's taking the world by storm. But, all right, this is for tickets. Everybody wakes up. There's a survey that's been running in Harvard Business Review for almost 10 years. And they've been measuring what C-suite officers in the Fortune 500 say about their state of data-driven. Public outcry. What percentage do you think C-suite officers say that their company is truly data-driven? Who's 30? Oh, we have two 30s? We can't do that. You guys got to go together to the hockey game. I heard this gentleman first. I'm so sorry. You should sit up front next time. Anyway, yes, hockey tickets tomorrow night. Tampa Bay Lightning and go see Angelique. All right. But yeah, roughly it's mind-boggling to me. I've been in the data-driven end of this technology world for 30 years, and only 30% of companies think that they're data-driven today. I mean, we're a long way off. So here's what's happened with DataSphere. We kind of took a step back. We're like, this isn't working the way we've been trying to do it. How we got here is important though, right? You got a business process that's running your business, is running a lot of different applications. Each one of those applications is shedding data, right? Took a lot of work by IT, but we transformed it, we moved it, we smushed it into an enterprise data warehouse. And did people love it? No, not everybody loved their enterprise data warehouse because it took a lot of IT work to try to just keep it alive, let alone flexible. So what happened? Finance wanted their own data mart. Manufacturing wanted their own data mart. Everybody wanted their own data mart. They wanted to be more flexible. Was that flexible enough? What do you think? No. Let's move that out to Excel spreadsheets and stick it underneath our desks. That's what happened next, right? So what happens? You got lots of transformation, you got poor governance, you got excessive data movement, you got lack of quality. Then voila, something great happened. It's the cloud. The cloud's going to save us. So now we took all that data, we started smushing it into the big queries of the world or the snowflakes or whatever else, thinking that was going to be our great solution. A couple of years later, kind of like we're back to where it's not flexible enough and I want my own thing. And so we started moving it to specialized clouds that are saying, we're going to help you on this specialized problem. You know, lineage is horrible, lots of latency by now, and what happens? Data analysis turns out to be very, very far away from the people that are working on the business problem. And so our goal as SAP is that we think data-driven insights need to become part of your business processes that people work in every single day. And there's lots of big processes where we're talking about order to cash or procure to pay. But decisions have to happen in different departments from the time somebody orders something to the time we deliver it and try to get that thumbs up on the internet, right? And so if you have the data that works across those departments, you can get the right decision support that you need to make the right decisions all along the way, right? So that's what DataSphere is trying to do, is trying to make that whole data equation a lot easier. How do you simplify your data landscape? How do you create this data fabric? We're working with Google and Calibra and Confluent, so we're taking a very open approach to this. There's a beautiful seat right here. I'll pick on you. Right there. Oh, it's a perfect seat. Databricks, Data Robot, right? All these different things exist for one reason only, and that's the Staples Easy button, right? How do we make the data easier to work with? How do we make the data better? Go see Glenn Leslie. He'll tell you. Ultimately, it's all about keeping insights close to the business process. Once you've kind of gotten the data better, we can now talk about how do we leverage business AI in a very positive way in our business. And so the interesting thing is Wall Street is asking our top executives, what are you going to do about AI in your business? How are you going to become more effective? How are you going to make your employees' lives better? All this kind of stuff. And so ultimately, you got to transform to be able to take advantage of business AI. I know we've had a lot of announcements about how we're going to deliver it, but it's incredibly important to realize you're just not going to glue it on like yet one more Band-Aid and suddenly expect it to have some amazing effect on your business. And so we're going to be talking about AI for 3 days here at Insider. There's no doubt about it. I just want to talk about 4 points to remember. First and foremost, LLMs, large language models, are not going to solve all the problems in business. There's no doubt in my mind, right? There are certain functional areas that might get better. So let's say Jim wants to write a job description for somebody he's going to hire. Sure, it might be able to do that, right? Or if you're coding something and you want a little routine that does something you've never done before, you can see, I mean, all these LLMs went out there to GitHub and kind of memorized everything that they do, right? So they can help in those kind of ways. But there's lots of things that need a combination of the business process knowledge, the business data from your entire database, right? And traditional AI and ML, right? We have to absolutely avoid We have to avoid making a mistake that's going to show up in the Wall Street Journal. Nobody wants that, and every company I talk to wants to keep their data private, so it's kind of an interesting problem as well. So if you think about a large language model, it's kind of like a brilliant English professor. Really good at conversation, but God, he has no short-term memory at all. He was spawned like 2 years ago, doesn't know anything that's happening in your business, really good at figuring out the next word to a sentence, but he's not ready for business problems. Here's an example of what these business problems look like. So let's say you want to ask your AI, will Big E Corp pay the latest invoice on time? It needs to understand the question, needs to understand your business, has to look at your data to see the payment history by Big E Corp in the past to ultimately come back with, yes, 98% chance that Big E's going to pay on time. We like Big E, right? Another question, will a specific shipment or product show up on time at our Seattle facility? Well, you got to look at current data to figure out that it's running 48 hours late. Last one, will Spacely Sprockets renew their contract with us? And the system comes back and says, yes, not only will they renew, they're going to add some additional services where we believe. So now we can put a salesperson to go talk to them and upgrade them in their next thing. And so how do you get the relevant, reliable, responsible AI? You've got to have these additional components that add to what the LLM does. The LLM is great at the conversation part, but it has to go look at your data. It has to put all the stuff together. It has to make sure it understands your process. You really don't want to ask it about a shipment, about a purchase order, and have it come back, well, these are the last 50 resumes that we like. It's like it doesn't have the context that it needs. And so SAP's being very careful. If you want to go to this web link, it'll actually download a little white paper about how we're doing AI ethics, because we want to make sure that the AI is used in very responsible ways and it's very relevant to your business. But you have to have these additional components beyond LLM to have it really affect your business well. And so ultimately, we're going to deliver AI in multiple ways. A lot of it's going to be embedded. You're going to take an application that you already have from us and suddenly it's going to work better. But the AI foundation as part of BTP is how you're going to add it to your existing business. And I have an example of how somebody did that recently. First of all, I want to talk about this idea of abstracting the core. If you're not familiar with Vestas, they build more of these windmills than anybody else on earth. I happen to see a lot of them because my daughter goes to college in Lubbock, Texas, so I drive 5 hours through windmills the entire way there. But they had a problem. Their CEO was an unhappy person. Every time he went to the IT department and asked for the next functionality, they'd come back and say, sure, we can get it done 2 years or 3 years. Everything was taking forever. They were drowning in paper. If the wind blew the wind blew the door of the construction trailer open, half the project might be on the floor. Everything was paper-based, and there were lots of expensive mistakes. If you move one of these huge cranes at the wrong spot, it's a $12,000 mistake. There's lots of small mistakes as well. The services side wasn't much better. They worked on these Panasonic Toughbooks, green screens, and this guy would go out to Timbuktu because they don't build these windmills in the middle of town. Go out to Timbuktu where he's got no network, and he'd not have a part. And he'd have to go in his little minivan, drive back to the city to order the part, go back out, do it again. It's kind of like Jim working on his house on the weekend, going to Home Depot 4 times in a row, right? Because he didn't get the right part. Right? So they jumped on an airplane. They went to Cupertino to the space dish. They did design thinking with just their field personnel, nobody from IT. They flew back to Denmark. They used pre-built content, those Lego City kits I've been talking about, to go fast, connect both SAP and non-SAP data together. In less than 6 months, construction went from all paper to all iOS. Services collapsed 50 of these green screen apps into 6 consumer-grade apps on iPhones and Androids. They actually put KPIs in the app that they'd give you the phone, not even train you on it, and see how you use it. So they actually made it really kind of cool. Ultimately, fast time to value, less risk, really ready for the future. So what have they done since they got ready for the future? Well, their evolution is absolutely accelerating. The first thing that they did was take a new mindset in their IT department. They started taking a product thinking version of how they get this done. They wanted to make sure that the outcomes match what they said the outcomes are going to be with the business, as opposed to just trying to get the done and not caring if they actually got the business outcomes that they wanted. They then decided to start working on supply chains. So more than half the products that go into these windmills are actually coming from third-party suppliers. So it became a very important thing for their business. They then, now that they've abstracted that legacy core from the front end, They then started working on the back end to get a modern engine installed there. They're now doing a next generation version of the field service stuff to improve that some more. And ultimately, they're now reimagining their warehouse inventory as well. So by doing a project that was a great project to do, the idea of abstracting the core and innovating at the edge, they suddenly are now taking off in a lot of different directions. So let me give you an AI example. This is Louisiana Pacific. I guess familiar with Louisiana Pacific? Big lumber company, right? They wanted to quickly apply AI to their existing business process to make it better, and they had a problem. The company averages about 500 orders per day, and each order might have 1,000 different line items in it. And they're trying to figure out how to optimize not only the customer experience, but the cost of delivery, and what they're delivering is by semi-truck. This is not small stuff, right? So the physical distribution of this was the key, and their existing way of doing it was very rules-based, right? They wanted it to be AI optimized. The upper area is what it looked like now. They'd get these 500 orders, and they would do it if then, trying to figure out where's the best place that I can ship this from. And so what they decided to do is take this AI optimizer, which is not, by the way, within BTP, because we're very open. This AI optimizer was surrounded by BTP stuff. So you get stuff out of ECC, feed it to the optimizer, have it come back with the recommendations, because it would look at all 500 orders and decide how to absolutely come back with the best possible mix. Unbelievable ROI, by the way. The ROI was like 970% the first year, and it actually much better the second year and third year, because the first year had all the implementation cost in it, right? It looked something like that, but ultimately, 4 weeks, they're applying AI to optimizing all the shipments for the company. Pretty awesome stuff. So the future is going to be very, real-time, data-driven, apply AI where it makes sense. Andy Malumba worked for my team last year. Great guy. You think this is just a football picture, but no, that's actually all pictures of Andy when he played for Green Bay Packers. And he made an amazing observation that really stood the test of time with me, and I love bringing this up. He said, look, it's not the team that had the best game plan at the beginning of the year that winds up winning the Super Bowl. It's really the team that adjusts the best from game to game, and actually from quarter to quarter, and from series to series. It's all about the fine-tuning adjustments that got these two teams to the Super Bowl this year. It's the same thing with business. It's an infinite game. You're always adjusting to whatever's happening in the marketplace, whatever's happening with your competition. And you might think this is the greatest example of real time, but it's not. NHL is much faster than the NFL. There's not a lot of time to go huddle up on the sidelines or be Tom Brady and throw your iPad down on the ground, right? It's nonstop game. You're substituting people in and out all the time. Eric Schneider talked at our BTP Summit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the BTP Summit series, but in September, we're going to have 2 more. It's great. One East Coast, one West Coast. But he came and talked about this basic idea. And in hockey, they're trying to adjust in real time to, if Dan is losing all his face-offs to Jim, I'm going to make sure I have Jim on the ice whenever Dan's on the ice. So it's a constant evolving scenario, and you're losing all your face-offs, okay? So you have to adjust absolutely in real time to win at hockey. So for a set of tickets, what underlying BTP service do you think drives the NHL's next-gen stats?
SAP Analytics.
SAP Boot.
Starts with an H. Who said HANA Cloud first? Let's be honest. Everybody's claiming it. All right, I got five crowd members are pointing to this gentleman, so he's going to the hockey game. Yeah, absolutely. HANA Cloud, part of BTP, is powering all of the next-gen stats for the NHL. And so, in summary, why BTP? You got to simplify the complexity to get prepared for the future, right? Absolutely the key. Number 2, you want to innovate fast while reducing risk. We give you all that while you reduce technical debt. And lastly, it's all about optimizing the business processes while become truly data-driven and intelligent. Any questions?